Hello and welcome to our Astranti YouTube channel. Today we're going to be focusing on the ACCA SBL exam, that's the ACCA Strategic Business Leader exam, and specifically we're going to be thinking about how you can make your answers more effective. So tip number one is that we want to use a clear structure and a professional format. So when we're thinking about having a clear structure, we want to have a logical flow to our answers. One way to help us do that is to have clear headings. So in those headings, we might say something like introduction to start us off, and then we might move on to our analysis, then we might move on to our recommendations, and then we might move on to our conclusions. So each one of those should be a clear heading, and then we should be having a logical flow to our argument within those headings. The way that you structure your argument matters because this is an exam that assesses your ability to communicate in a professional environment. The exam mirrors that environment, and therefore demonstrating that you can give a clear structure to your responses will really show the examiner that you are able to do this, and it will also help them to follow your points. So one example of this could be that in a report you might have an opening statement outlining the purpose of the report, and then you might move on to some of your analysis and your recommendations, and you would want to make sure that the tone of your report is appropriate for the task you have been given. Obviously that's very context dependent, but generally there'll be some sort of clue in the question as to how they want you to be responding in your answer. For example, this could be something like an email, it could be a report, or it could be a presentation, so make sure you're following the correct formatting there and that you're using the appropriate tone, which is likely to be quite formal. Okay, so tip number 2 is to follow the point, evidence, explain structure for real written responses. What that looks like is we're going to start with making a clear point to answer the question. That's generally the central idea that you have. We're going to then back up that point or that idea with some evidence. So if we're thinking about a case study, as we are in the ACCA SBL exam, that is likely to be some data, it is likely to be some examples or some further references to the case study. So that's how you have your point and your evidence, and then you need to explain it. So when we're explaining something, obviously we give greater depth, but we also need to try and link it back to the question and the case study itself, thinking about the task requirements and thinking about that company's objective. The benefit of this structure is that it forces you to include some depth in your answers, which means that you have a really in-depth demonstration of your knowledge, pretty much by accident if you're following the structure, and that's really effective for getting those marks. So for example, instead of saying Rodnim could improve their staff training, which is correct but is quite a sort of brief sentence, instead you could say Rodnim staff survey revealed that lots of staff were dissatisfied with the onboarding process, and that Rodnim need to make adjustments to this to align with their goal of improving their operations. Tip number 3 is to align your solutions with the pre-scene and exhibits. So the best way to write is to make sure that you're consistently referencing the pre-scene and the exhibits. The best things to be thinking about are specific data, to think about stakeholder concerns or strategic objectives that might have some impact on your answer. And the reason that we do that is that it highlights your ability to analyse critically the material you've been given and to be able to apply theoretical knowledge to a practical example. So for example, when discussing the integration of AI, you could then reference Rodnim's stagnating Net Promoter Score or their strategic objective of improving innovation as some key ways to sort of back up your argument there and your reasons for suggesting it. So tip number 4 is to have a balance of analysis and recommendations. So when we're thinking about a discussion of benefits and risks, that needs to be quite balanced, and then we need to follow that with actionable suggestions based on the data in front of you. The reason that we think about doing that is because we know that the SBL exam values a holistic approach. So providing both sides of the argument can show that you have critical evaluation skills, while also providing practical solutions to those can show that you are rooted in the business needs and that you're able to understand those really well. So for example, if we were again to think about AI integration, you could start with thinking about some potential benefits such as the potential cost savings and increased operational efficiencies, and then you might move on again to sort of have that balance there to thinking about some issues with it. So perhaps that could be something like implementation costs or the risk of some data security concerns, and then you can end that discussion by thinking about having an implementation plan for the use of AI that mitigates the risks involved. Tip number 5 is to tailor your professional skills to the task. So if the task is asking for something specific, make sure that the skill you are demonstrating is appropriate for that task. So that could be analysis, that could be communication, that could be skepticism, that could be evaluation. Any one of those things you need to be able to demonstrate, and it's good to show a variety of those things. A lot of the marks in the ACCA SBL exam come from demonstrating these professional skills, so it's really important to be showing them. Demonstrating these effectively can also make a difference between having a good answer and an excellent answer. So one example of this could be, for a presentation slide task, it would make sense to have visually concise slides with more detailed notes to accompany them to demonstrate that sort of reality there of what a presentation is like and to reflect your excellent communication skills in that particular area. Our bonus tip, and the way that we're going to end this video, is to think about practicing good time management. We know that the ACCA SBL exam is really time pressured, and therefore the best way that we're going to show ourselves in our best light is to use really good time management to make sure that we get through all of the questions effectively. So make sure that you're allocating your time based on the number of marks available for each task and subtask. I would say allocate no more than 1.5 minutes to a mark to ensure that you are able to finish on time. The reason that we suggest doing this is because we know that a comprehensive but unfinished answer is going to lose marks, and the best thing that you can do is prioritize key points to try and pick up as many marks as you possibly can. If you've got coverage of all the required elements, you're going to do much better in that particular question. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this helpful. Best of luck with your ACCA SBL exam.